I would like to introduce myself. My name is Taide Morales from Hispanic in Philanthropy. I am a technology manager and I have been working for HIP for 3 years now. I am very happy to be here with you today. This is a great audience, and I would love for Alejandra and Jacksubeli to introduce themselves. So please, Ale. Thank you. My name is Alejandra Macías Delgadillo, and I think that Jack has her mic off. Your mic is off, so I will share this presentation with you now. All right, so this is us, Taide, Alejandra, and Jacksubeli from BITE. I am sure she will introduce herself soon. So if you have any questions, please ask them. You can type them on the chat, and we're here for you. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you now. Oh, thank you. I was starting to panic. All right, so my name is Jacksubeli Gonzalez, but feel free to call me Jack. I work for Border Youth Tennis Exchange, or BITE. I work for Mexican operations. I am the director, and I will just wait for my turn so that I can tell you a bit more about our wonderful organization. Perfect. So bridging the digital gap, the digital divide among migrants. So I would love to see your happy faces, just like my little bear here. And also during the networking sessions, hopefully we can have more interesting conversations. All right, so let's start. First things first. Let's go to the more technological part, if you will. In only a few days, coronavirus locked us down. We had to study, work, and look at each other in the eye through a camera. Access to internet has allowed many of us to move on with our lives in spite of the pandemic, home office, online education, and so on. However, the reality is not the same all over the world. We will talk about 5 digital divides and the impact they have on social inclusion. Number one, the access digital divide. So access is not equal when it comes to technology, which leads to inequality when it comes to connection. And for some people, it's even hard to have access to a device that is connected to the network. And this is also particularly important for people who live somewhere else, right? Because they need to get in touch with their country maybe, and they can't. Number two, the usage digital divide. This refers to lack of digital skills, which prevents people from using technology. This can be related to learning opportunities. Of course, we are in Mexico City, so there is always some noise. I do apologize for the background noise. Hopefully you did not get that. All right, back to our subject. The digital divide when it comes to taking advantage of technology. So this means that people see a contrast between specialized knowledge with truthful information. So the trend in social networks is to maybe not question how true a statement is, and that can have an impact on social inclusion and exclusion processes. This trend can influence society by means of discrimination and hate speech, consciously or unconsciously contributing to a dissemination and a rooting among the population. Number four, gender digital divide. Sexism, xenophobia. Women are still in more trouble than men. This limits their participation in the networks. Just to give you an example, misogyny, lack of access by women, the design of stereotypical content, offline sexism. This is among families and even with when you're with your couple, online harassment and the like. And last but not least, the digital divide for migrant children. So, foreign born children who are native digital children, they are considered native digital children, but they are also impacted by the digital divide. Their social inclusion, educational inclusion, and their work future are put at risk. There can also be some problems like lack of privacy, misuse of personal data, and so on. As a mother of two, this digital divide is changing the way we live. I am sure that people here in the audience share that concern with me. Technological equipment and access to internet are no longer a luxury, they are a necessity now. These divides affect directly the migrant community and their integration, their access to knowledge or online participation, and they face many obstacles that affect their access to technology. For example, economic costs, contracts that require to have a fixed house, negative experiences when it comes to using a network or a device, lack of time and dedication, and a feeling of incapacity, shame, ignorance, or fear, or simply not knowing the language. Knowing the scope and consequences of these on migrants and refugees is very important for social inclusion and labor inclusion. So we need to work for the inclusion of migrants. So what? It seems like I said a lot, right? The reality is that you can have this presentation later. I will give you some resources with some great initiatives. And there is another important point. This inspires me. This helps me come up with new ideas for development. I would like to ask you to take action to bridge some of these divides that migrants live every day. You can find many resources online, and today we have two great partners, Asylum Access and Byte. They do amazing work and they will give you some examples of how they are bridging the digital divide. I am sure that this will be an aha moment. Your eyes will be open, just like my little teddy bear here. And I'm sure you will get so many ideas about this. So, Alejandra, I give you the floor now so you can share your presentation and maybe you can tell us a little bit about the challenges that you see in terms of access to services. What has your organization done during the pandemic to keep on providing assistance? What plans do you have for the future, and what actions you're going to do? Thank you. I will now share my presentation. You can see my screen now, can you? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Good afternoon, everybody. As I said at first, my name is Alejandra Macias Delgadillo, and I work for Asylum Access Mexico. First of all, I would like to tell you what we do at this organization. This organization was created in 2005, but we started working in Mexico in 2015. We have 7 offices throughout the country, and we work mainly so that asylum seekers and refugees have access to their rights. We have a project which is called Ruta de la Hospitalidad. This project is about challenging the barriers that prevent asylum seekers and refugees to access their rights and public services, as well as employment and others. I would like to tell you a bit about the context of the pandemic. As Taide was saying during her presentation, the pandemic changed the way we worked before. Right now, at Asylum Access, our work changed. From working in person, we changed and now we work online. So, because of the pandemic, we have enabled new communication mechanisms, we have improved existing mechanisms. And last year, in late March, early April, that's when we changed the modality. And what we did to keep on providing services for asylum seekers and refugees is that we had to enable new phone lines, emails, and more dissemination on social networks about the new way in which we worked. And this also in order to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So people who wanted to have access to our services and to get follow up on their cases and to get advice, they had to make an appointment on our social networks or via email so that we could schedule an appointment either in person or through the phone. In spite of the pandemic, in 2020, we provided advice and care for thousands of people, for over 5,500 asylum seekers and refugees in Mexico. Now, I would like to tell you about the digital divide for refugees. I actually think that there are two main digital divides affecting refugees and asylum seekers. First of all, we have the access divide and usage divide, as Taide was saying. That is because not all asylum seekers and refugees or migrants have access to a device, like a computer or a telephone that allows them to have access to digital platforms or to have internet access to do these processes. And since the onset of the pandemic, we saw that many of the government agencies stopped some of their processes or they migrated to online platforms. In terms of education, many classes moved online. And that is what we had to do at Asylum Access. So we had to move to the virtual world. However, when we are working virtually, we know that that can exclude many asylum seekers and refugees or people who are vulnerable because of the lack of a piece of equipment will prevent them from accessing these services or rights. So the people we provide advice to, the people we serve, are very diverse. They are very diverse and their education is very diverse as well. Some of the profiles that we see are people that don't know how to read or write, for example, while there are other people who have an advantage, for example, from people from Central America, people who have been able to take advantage of these opportunities that come up virtually. So, what we see is that our users are mainly Venezuelans. Even if people can have a device, sometimes the issue is access to internet or a stable connection. And we don't see it only with our users, we see it with our team in Asylum Access as well. Depending on where the office is located, well, sometimes we have problems for a stable internet connection, mainly in the southern border in Mexico, in Tenosique and Palenque. There are constant internet issues, so it's complicated for people to have access to stable internet connection. So, what we have done to provide people with internet access is to have a computer center at the Villahermosa office with free access to computers and free access to internet. Asylum Access is also striving to make people to make people manage their own processes. So that is why we made this computer center available for asylum seekers and refugees who maybe can't have access to these services. So they can go to the Asylum Access Office and they can have these resources. Many of these services have been used by people to get training, you know, or maybe to prepare for a job interview or to strengthen their knowledge on a specific subject. We have seen that since the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, which has hit the whole world, schools have also moved to the digital world. And so, what we want is that even if people don't have a computer or even if they don't have internet access, well, they can go to this Asylum Access Office and have these services. Now, what have been the advances and challenges of this pilot project? The project has indeed bridged the digital divide among the groups we are interested in, and we see that some of the people that really need these services have very limited resources for transportation, for example. So that is why they don't go to our offices to take advantage of these services. They prefer to use their money to cover other needs, such as food, for example. So that is another challenge to see how to solve that and to see how people can have access to these services and to reach more people. On the other hand, it is also important to mention that this project, Fruta de la Hospitalidad, has entered into partnerships with many different organizations and foundations. For example, ProSalud, which has a program known as Orale. This program, Orale, is mainly for young people so that they can get the tools to later on be employed. And for the youth to have access to this training, Asylum Access has supported them with, for example, a top up card for their cell phones every 2 weeks so that they can access this training. We have also used Facebook, for example. Many asylum seekers and refugees go to Facebook pages. So we have saved all of the workshops that we have taught, all of our talks, and that means that people can have access to that material anytime. In that way, we reach more people. I would also like to mention that just like Taide was saying, this is no longer a luxury. This is really necessary. People need access to the internet. I think this virtual world is gonna be here forever. And Asylum Access wants to have more computer centers at other offices to reach more people. We will certainly continue our virtual activities, and of course, later on, we will go back to our in person activities. That's also very important. But the benefit of doing that virtually is that we can reach more people too. People who are not necessarily at a specific office or at a specific city for them to have access to this. Thank you. Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you for sharing this. Now, Jackie, is there something you would like to share about the work done by Byte? I do apologize if I mispronounced the word earlier. Oh, no worries. I guess Spanglish is part of our lives, so that's not a problem, not at all. Alejandra, thank you very much. Congratulations on your presentation. I am so happy to know that many organizations are working for the community. Thank you for sharing that content. It looks like my presentation is ready. I will share it with you in a minute. But I would like to tell you a bit more about myself. My name is Jack Subeli from Byte. But before moving on to the presentation, I would like to give you some background. Let me just use my timer so that we respect time. So there is something that's important to mention. I am an educational inspector, and I think that is important because of this background from the university where I studied. I have a wide experience in non-formal education. What does that mean? When I say non-formal, it's not like I'm just gonna grab someone there on the street and sit that person on a chair and put them to study. No, this is more related to people. I just want to mention this because some people may need some more information about this. So this is an informal sort of education which reinforces a formal education. So in the case of Mexico, for example, we have our Department of Public Education, and I specifically am in the state of Sonora, where we also have our Department of Education and Culture. So of course, there is a schedule, there is a program designed for specific ages, for specific populations with very specific characteristics. However, that's not part of the curriculum in our education system. Arts, for example, and more specifically visual arts. And so this background is something that has allowed me to, in a way, become an organizer, if you will, for the community because it's like I got that label, right? I like to be among people and, doing festivals and many things. Now, let me tell you what BITE means. I will tell you about our challenges to and the solutions that we have found for these challenges. And this is what I will be discussing. And finally, I will uh, discuss some conclusions or pretty much what we have learned from this experience. Okay, so I will now share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see it. So could you please confirm if you can see my screen? Yes, we do. Perfect. Okay, so we can skip this presentation. Tide has already introduced us to this virtual stage. So I will be discussing some contemporary techniques in the cross-border digital narrative. And I added here building teaching bridges, not ignorance walls. If we have some time at the end, we can maybe try to interpret this title and subtitle. So, BITE is a cross-border non-for-profit organization. So when I say cross-border, I mean that we work on both sides of the border. However, legally speaking, BITE was created in the US. However, we work mainly in Mexico. So this is on both sides of the border on Nogales. So we have had the chance to work on both sides. And we have had some exchange among children and youth from both countries. It's important to mention that our organization tries to be a leader in terms of diplomacy and cultural dialogue. What this means is that while there are some differences among communities, we also respect those differences. We don't want all communities and all cultures to be the same. We acknowledge the fact that there are differences, we respect them, and we want to have a dialogue related to these differences. So we have people who teach workshops, we have students, we have children, we have young people from both countries, and we talk a lot about interculturality, like trying to respect everybody. All right, now let's talk about the challenges that we have seen. You can see this short list on the left-hand side. This short list has actually been, quite hard because of all of the challenges. So, like Ali was mentioning, the internet has been quite a challenge. Maybe we don't have a problem right now. We are here, we are connected, we are, part of this program, but we have to be aware of the fact that there are children and whole families that do not have access to internet. I mean, it doesn't matter, they can have like really good high-tech electronic devices, but if they don't have any internet access, then they will lag behind and they won't have access to the artistic uh,
So
of
now let's say that these families have internet, and well, we were lucky to provide them an electronic device. That's what we like calling it, but it's a tablet or an iPad. However, digital education, it's a challenge how to use it. We have children, young people working with you. Well, they're very good at working with their own cell phone for playing, for Facebook, for Instagram, for taking photographs, and so forth. But in order to use educational applications, we require a little bit more of information on how to use them, and not just to direct participants, but for the family as a whole, so that the parents, anyone taking care or looking after the kids, could support them on these. And that takes me to supervision. Not many kids have the opportunity of having their parents being at home they were on their own. So in Mexico, well, we have families that are just led by a mom or a dad, or both parents who work, and for kids to be able to connect on time to find the right ID for the meeting. That was also a big headache for us. But well, a little later, without any spoilers, I will tell you how we solved this a little later. But well, communication was a very difficult thing because we work with email. However, in order to connect for us through email and through WhatsApp, it was an easy thing to do, to communicate. However, how did we communicate with kids that did not have a telephone, or that did not have a way of checking their email, or that they're not using their email? So it was a challenge being able to communicate with the families and to give them instructions and clear instructions on how the activities are at home. Now, competition was also a challenge, because when the pandemic hit the whole world and when we had this first lockdown, well, lots of virtual jobs appeared, and it was difficult because, well, I mean, I'm talking about competitors, like, hey, you should not work in this community because I'm working in this community. But how to agree, how to have all organizations agreeing so that we're not replicating activities. The content, well, what do I mean by educational content? Well, we have worked with Dennis. That is an activity that's on hold now because of the virtuality of the pandemic. But tennis was a kind of hook for having children joining educational activities, cultural activities, artistic and cultural activities. And this was done in person, and it was a very easy thing to do. But now the challenge is how to create content. How is it virtual? How do we offer this content? How do we design it? So we had to start from scratch. We were an organization working with in-person events, and we had to move to virtual content. Now, virtual brought us technical problems, that internet was slow, that not just the participants' internet was low, but also our team's internet was low. So how can we work on these issues that were rising? And a challenge that we had was, okay, we are doing all this effort, we are doing all these things, and why are we doing this? Is it working? So we also had to take some time to think if we were going to continue with that kind of activities, and we had to assess our work all the time so that we could improve all the time. Now, the solutions, well, our first solution was that we had 160 to 200 participants. And what we had to do to get in contact with families was that instead of doing it massively, we started doing it in smaller groups. So we started, each of the instructors over here, what they did was to work with a smaller group, and that is the way in which we work. And Hugo, one of the facilitators, was in charge of 4 or 5 families. Carolina did the same. And well, we're 12 members. We're around 12 members now. And what we did was to work with a group of families so that we did not have like an ocean of people impossible to control. So we ran an assessment to know who required the internet, who required electronic devices, and the way of sharing them with them. Also, we schedule meetings with families and with participants so that we would formalize the event. So we told them, okay, once a month, participants are meeting. We're going to have the families, we're going to have adults, and we're going to let you know how the groups are going. And we also have a group tutorial for parents so that they could use the tablet, so that they could connect to Zoom. And we also had these tutorials for children that did not know how to move or use the devices or how to click on. And that's the way that we started. That's what we started to do, to have this digital education. Also, we trained the Byte team in order to develop content and to have a pilot program to guarantee and what about this pilot? Let me tell you about it. We designed the class, and well, Carolina, one of my colleagues, would teach the class as if we were children before it started. And then that's when we started having all this feedback. Like, it's important that we have more games. It's important that children do not get bored and so forth. Like, we started getting all this feedback so that the content would improve. Also, we have a person in charge of all the technical aspect, and that was great because, well, we had the facilitator, the main facilitator, teaching a class, then we had an assistant, and then we had to handle all those problems, like maybe Melanie could not join because she did not have the ID handy, or because the mom was dialing. So we did this so that the main facilitator would not be distracted. I mean, she was in charge of sharing all this content, but we have someone in solving all these technical difficulties. Now, let me share with you what we learned. First of all, that working hand in hand with more organizations, both private and public, strengthens community work. And that's what I was telling you. Not to see each other as competitors. It's better to see ways to work together for the community, because that is the goal. Our service is to give it to all the community. Virtual scheduling and visual programs depends on the relationships, solid relationships and organization with the community. But we were lucky that we had the community. That's a very big one. And we did all this work with them. And then thanks to all these people that we met, and these people trusted us, we had this opportunity of offering successful virtual content. But it definitely depends, well, at least in our case, it depended on us knowing the people we were connecting. And well, content has to be solid and interesting, but that's a little part of what the work requires. It's not just that's an appealing content, but also that we have the right staff, well trained. I'm running out of time, but well, we it's not just an appealing content. We need to look at the bigger picture. And virtual access is not just using an electronic device. As I told you earlier, it's not just giving a tablet to someone and see what they can do with the tablet. No, everything that's behind it. Like, you give a device to someone, you train them, then you tell them how the different hours, schedule, how to join the session, communication. And well, the last thing is that children and teenagers want to learn no matter if it's virtual or in person. To me, that was very clear. I thought that we were going to have to go behind them and to glue them to the chair and having sit them in front of a computer screen, but that was not the case. They're open to everything. They're open to everything to learn. So we have to bear that in mind. They're always trying to learn. And then to communicate with the families, we have to do that as easy and practical as possible. Well, to all of us, email is very easy, but they'll tell this to a mom or a dad that's preparing breakfast, that's cleaning and doing chores at home. And now in lockdown, most families are stuck at home. So honestly, at what time are they checking this email? So WhatsApp was an easy thing to do to communicate, because as a mom, as I don't know, preparing breakfast, an egg or whatever, it was easy for the mom to reply to a WhatsApp message without having her moving to a special place and an email. Also, this virtual organization requires more effort than work in person, because it's very easy to say, okay, let's do all this virtual, but everything that we have to do beforehand so that we have a virtual program took a great effort. In person, we would just have a person coming, joining, and well, Melanie's here, Artur is here, I'm coming for them in 2 hours or whatever. Now it's very different. And well, I'd like to wrap up this presentation is that a wall cannot stop art and creativity. No matter how tall the wall is, we will keep finding ways of finding art crossing those borders. And the children use this approach so that they keep learning and that their creativity is never limited. So we want to keep working on virtual work. We will have a hybrid model, both in person and virtual. We're going to keep offering our services to communities that accompany through all this work, and we're going to keep welcoming whoever wants to join us. We're going to keep managing resources so that a community is empowered. And yeah, beware that the community itself is the one that's empowered. We're not giving them like a package of empowering or anything like that. And we're going to came back to official institutions when the guidelines for COVID allow to do so. And let me share some photos of the places where we have some advocacy. Well, we have some shelters over here, a shelter for children. We also have a park, a public park that was abandoned, and then we started using that park. We have a boys and girls club, so that they also have other physical and cultural activities for them to spend their free time. And well, this is my presentation. And well, this is, if you need more information or if you require anything else, well, this is all my contact information. Please feel free to copy all this information. And well, we will also have a Q&A session in a minute. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Jackie, for sharing this experience that VITE is doing for reducing these digital breaches. I do believe that both of you deserve a round of applause from an audience. A beautiful audience that we have today, right, Alejandra? Right, Jackie? Yeah, we have some questions, and I would like you to help us answer these questions. Alejandra. Yes, thanks very much. Thanks, Jackie. Congratulations for your presentation. Very interesting presentation. Well, yeah, to everyone here joining us, thanks very much for being here. There is a question here. They're asking me, like, if during the pandemic, the computer section's been open, and if this area is closed, how have you allowed people to have access to technological tools? Well, yes, this computing area has remained open. What we do is to make sure that we don't have a lot of people in the office all the time. What we're doing is we're following the guidelines, and we're keeping our safe distance. We're following all the guidelines here in Mexico. And what we've done in other cases, and mainly for people that have given training sessions or workshop, if people they don't have computers, but they have a mobile telephone, what we buy is we top up their plans, we top up their telephones in Mexico so that they have data and that they can have access to these workshops. We also had with the Red Cross from Mexico, we agreed on a workshop so that people could get tools such as the first respondent, and then with this certification so that people could get a job or be self-employed or to try to get a job in the public or private sector at hospitals. And well, with the pandemics, we had to change all these workshops. At first, they were in person, but then we had to do them virtually. So on that regard, people that did not have access to a computer were offered the option of coming to our offices and to take these training courses. And for the ones that had the computer but did not have access to the internet, so that they could cover the expenses, so that they could be benefited by all these workshops. Great, Ale. Ale, and I have one more question over here. A question by someone in the audience. From your team, how has your team done all these changes through technology? Has it been easy or difficult for you to move towards technology? How have you handled this internally? Well, yes, it's been complicated. It hasn't been an easy thing to do. And well, mainly because of the consultancy and the representation that we were doing in person. Well, we had to bring all this to the virtual world, and people that are being represented or that receive our services, well, they hardly ever have a telephone. So that was a bit complicated to give the right follow-up to all these cases, to have a contact, to be able to contact people if they had to send a document and they require the signature. That's also a challenge, so that we can reach people for doing so. But well, on the other hand, as I said at the beginning, all our talks were in person. We visited migrant shelters. We took the shelters to them so that people would know about their rights in Mexico. But well, in shelters, we also have all these different guidelines for stopping the spread of coronavirus. So what we did is we started giving virtual workshop, but not everyone connected for many different reasons. Well, some of the reasons is that the internet signal they had was very bad, and they could not have the right follow-up to the workshop or the talk, or then also this option of not having access to a device. So it's been also complicated for teams to adapt to this. And then I think that what I can tell you from this experience at first, March, April of the past year, and as of today, well, what I can tell you is that people are also now more familiarized with all the services that we're providing. Some people also reach us on Facebook. They sent us a direct message on Facebook, and then we ask for their contact information. We ask them where to connect, and it's also our team, the one that gets in contact with them, and this has helped very much. Perfect, Alejandra. Thanks very much. And I have this other question over here, that this experience with mobile devices. And I think that this is a question to what Byte does. And the question is, what have been the key aspects for using these devices, and what are your best recommendations or your best advice for this? Well, first of all, to answer this question, let me tell you what are the workshops that we've been offering. Well, now we are offering digital storytelling. We are also offering the course. I'm sorry that I'm Spanglishing here. Yeah, but it's digital animation, dance, modern dance, and the experience. Well, first just say dance. Like, one of the things that have worked is dance. And then what we are doing is we provide tablets, and what we've seen is that children like learning through electronic devices, but the content has to be very appealing. And we also learn that this has to be in real time. This has to be in real time. Not a bot or anything like that, telling them like Dora the Explorer or like and what is his friend? No, they want to see real people, not Dora the Explorer. They want real people teaching them, even when we have all this virtuality. So this has been one of the recommendations that I have for you for this type of virtual work. Modern dance has worked pretty well. We used to do it before in person. We had this big basketball court, but now children are telling us that they feel very comfortable and they feel better working because they are at home in the living room. So the pandemic has brought lots of challenges, but also things that are good that we learned and that we won't stop using because yeah, we have access to a larger population that wants to dance in the living room at home. Hopefully, I answered, and hopefully, I didn't get your question wrong. No, Jackie. Honestly speaking, I think that Byte is doing an amazing work, and Carolina has another question over here, and that question is: how have you organized so that students that did not have access to internet are still part of these courses? Is the question to me? Yes, yes, the question is for you. Well, what we did was to start granting electronic scholarships. We have three types of scholarships. Well, we have a full scholarship. That's I don't have internet at home, I don't have any electronic devices, but I do want to participate. So what we did through invitations and private donors, we created a budget and we bought 22 iPads, and we also had Android tablets. Hopefully they won't kill me because I'm sharing brands with you. No problem. So yeah, we had some Android tablets that we used before for digital storytelling for children to take photographs, and we started using them as well. And well, these scholarships are through running a diagnosis of the people that work with us, that require them, and then we worked on a budget for knowing who needed these devices, who required the internet, or who just required a device, or who required both. And then we had some invitations for finding donors and donations. Great. So I think that your work is amazing when it comes to reducing digital breaches. I think that your work will break paradigms for quite a long time, and everything you now have when it comes to these red lights, maybe, or all these paradigms that you've been facing on a daily basis. So yes, I think you've been able to solve it. I think it is amazing the work you're doing, and I don't think that you don't need to be like a genius to create new ideas, to come up with new things. And we have to think as our superheroes, just like our superheroes, in order to create new experiences in our community. And well, I thank you very much for your time. I thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. And well, thanks very much. Thanks to everyone that joined this session today. Thanks. If you have any other questions, or if you have anything else you'd like to share with us, please. We will be now in this networking session, and yeah, we might be able to chat there. So thanks very much, Alejandra. Thanks very much, Jackie, for your participation. And please keep working, keep this great work, keep working on reducing these bridges. Your work is amazing for the migrant community, and the best of luck to both organizations. If you have anything else to add, please, this is the perfect moment to do so. We have 5 minutes about to finish. Well, I just want to reinforce that we work with different populations. And yeah, because, well, I saw here that in this chat they said that we have this work with shelters. And well, this work with shelters, what we're doing is we install a television, and the ones that's the Power Rangers and Sorden on the screen. Well, we just did the same thing. I feel like Sorden in a big screen as they are like teaching, and yeah, that was also a little bit of adapting to the different things we did before, the things they needed, the devices, and how to get them. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I have different options for you to apply. Thanks very much, Jackie. No, yeah, absolutely. Alejandra, yes, please go ahead. Yes, yes. Yes, I'm sorry. My internet is a little bit slow. But yeah, we have to keep working to face all these challenges, to see how overcome these burdens that people are facing and the people that we work for, and well, to find different mechanisms that would allow us to have more integration. Because well, now we have all these courses, this training, education, and well, everything that's now virtual. It's part of the integration of people as well. And yeah, we have to see all these mechanisms so that we can access to them. So thanks very much. Well, thanks very much, everyone. A big round of applause for you, for all our audience here. So thanks very much. We're here, and please stay here. We have more workshops, more conferences, and well, we'll meet again tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. So please, anything you need, we're here. We have our social media as well. We have our chat as well, so that we can have this networking together. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alejandra. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, everyone. Our owner, Mario. Thanks very much, Mario.